Where are they sitting? They're right there.
Oh, they are here? They're here, though. Look, Howard.
Well, you gotta wait. I gotta get the manager and Chris up there.
They're going to stay?
They sit up there.
They are? Are you ready?
Yeah,
Ready?
we're good. Just tell Mike.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you to please take your seats, and we will begin the ceremony. Good evening, and welcome to the 7th Annual Enfield Police Award Ceremony. I'm Lieutenant Steve Kazlauskas. I will be your Master of Ceremonies tonight. And at this time, I'd like to ask you all please rise for the posting of colors and the singing of the National Anthem by Officer Nicole Martell. Detail, post. Present. Hoot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Point. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please stay standing and join Chief Carl Safraza as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Please be seated. I'd like to invite Reverend John Melnick to the stage for our invocation.
And let us pray. Good and loving God, you are the creator of all things. You knew each of us before we were formed in our mother's womb, and you carry us through all of our earthly days. You help us realize that each and every person is unique, is precious, is unrepeatable. You help us realize that we all stand equal before you. Tonight we gather to recognize those among us who have exercised superb virtues of courage, of recognizing the dignity in every human person. We ask you to bless them all their earthly days, and we also look forward to that one day where we continue to serve you in the heavenly kingdom. And we ask this in God's name. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Chief Carl Safraza for our opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. And before we get started, I do want to recognize a few people that are here tonight. First and foremost, I'd invite at this time the mayor of the town of Enfield, Mr. Scott Copen, to come up and say a few words. Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. Carl, thank you very much for the invitation to be here this evening. I'm joined by three of my council colleagues, Councilman Carol Hall, Councilman Greg Stokes, and Councilman Tom Arnone. Just a couple words. First, this is the 7th annual award ceremony, and I remember back, Chief, when you started thinking about what was the proper way to recognize and honor law enforcement achievements and also civilian contributions to law enforcement. And you were a little unsure how successful an awards program would be. But I can tell from the crowd here this year and in the past years, it is something that is so deserving and is something that should be done every year. We should be recognizing achievement on an annual basis. The council is very proud of our police department and the cooperation that the police department has with other agencies at the state of Connecticut and within the region. I got a message for the families. The families were invited here, and on behalf of the community, I want to thank you for sharing your husband, your wife, your son, your daughter, however the relation is, with the town of Enfield and with the Enfield Police Department. We know that there's days when you would rather have them home, and there's probably a little bit of questioning every time he or she walks out the door. But they're coming here to town to work for us, to protect and to serve us in the community, and we are grateful that you do share them with us on a daily basis. And hopefully in return that we're providing them with the top-notch police department, with the training that they need, with the leadership that they need. To the officers that are being recognized here, many of you probably are saying, you know what, it's just in the line of duty, and that I didn't do anything extraordinary to be recognized this evening. But again, enjoy tonight, because you should be recognized, and you should be very happy. You should be very proud of what your accomplishments are, because your community is proud of what you do for us. So to all the award recipients, congratulations, and thank you for your service to our town. And Chief, again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come up and say a few words and to share in this moment this evening. Thanks a lot.
Okay, before we continue, I would like to recognize a few other folks that are here tonight, starting with the town manager of the town of Enfield, Mr. Matt Koppler. To his right, Public Safety Director Chris Bromson, my Deputy Chief Gary Collins, who's somewhere way in the back, and one of my captains, Captain Fred Hall. We're also joined tonight by Major Rick Fox of the Connecticut State Police over here, and also Fire Chief from North Thompsonville, Earl Provencher. So we want to thank certainly all you folks for coming tonight. And before we get too far into it, and I get into my remarks, in order for a police department to be successful, and I think we're very successful, we need to have resources. We need people, and we need equipment. And I want to publicly state right now, this is coming to the end of my 7th year as chief, and especially with the present town council, the way it's set up. I've never gone to the town council in my tenure as chief and said, you know, our guys need weapons, they need vests, they need equipment, and I've never been turned away. As a matter of fact, it's the contrary. They tell me, you do what you got to do to keep our people safe. So on behalf of everyone at the Enfield Police Department, Mr. Mayor and Town Council, we certainly want to thank you for your support, not only in terms of resources that you provide to us, but personnel and just being there for us all the time. So thank you very much. You can applaud. You know, Enfield's a pretty good sized department. We're 99 sworn people, and we're nationally accredited. We're a CALEA organization. We're proud of that. We've held that title since 1996. But you know what? Nobody can be successful all the time by themselves. In the past year, we've experienced a couple of incidents within our community where we needed some help. Now, we've always partnered with other police agencies. We work well with federal agencies, FBI, DEA. We work well with municipal agencies. But probably the closest relationship that we share and appreciate is the relationship that the Enfield Police Department has with the Connecticut State Police. We've trained with these gentlemen. We work with them, and anytime I call them because I need some resources, never do I get, we'll see what we can do. It's just tell me how many troopers and where do you want them. And we don't want the state police, as represented tonight by Major Rick Fox, to think that that's not appreciated. So please express to the commissioner how much we appreciate it here at Enfield. And with that, Rick, could you please come up and say a few words?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard a few moments ago, my name is Major Alaric Fox. I am the Chief of Staff to our Commissioner, our Deputy Commissioner, and our Colonel Danny Stebbins. It's a pleasure to join you this evening on behalf of Colonel Stebbins. Beyond my professional responsibilities with the State Police, I would also share a personal thought with you this evening. It is an honor for me, if I could be so bold as to say this, to call myself an adopted son of the town of Enfield, having married a very nice woman from your community and having family from within this community. It is, of all the places that I have the occasion to have the opportunity to go and speak and represent the department, this community is truly, truly near and dear to my heart. This evening we recognize that this group of officers, the group of officers that has distinguished themselves as the best of the best, those who have stepped up and walked where others have declined to tread. This community should be so incredibly proud of the quality of law enforcement services and the individuals that are honored here tonight. What they have done in the events that you will hear of this evening are merely moments in their careers. punctuations, if you will, in what are otherwise day in and day out performances that are of the same caliber that you will hear about this evening. They are truly heroes, and to that degree, we should be proud of all of them. Finally, I would also be remiss if I did not share back with the chief his comments to me from a few moments ago. To the chief and to the deputy chief and to Public Safety Commissioner Bromson, if there was ever an organization that has mastered taking the necessary steps to ensure a solid, working, healthy, harmonious relationship with your brothers and sisters within the Connecticut State Police, it is this community. There has not been an event where we have not been able to help, but there has never been an event where we did not want to help. When we come to this town, we are treated as equals, we are treated as professionals, our assistance and our guidance is sought, and the level of respect and mutual admiration that you heard referenced a few moments ago from the chief is certainly reciprocated on the part of the Connecticut State Police. Chief, I hope that when retirement comes many years from now, you would take the opportunity to perhaps write a book, and that book could be in how to ensure positive relations between state and local law enforcement officials. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so now I'm going to give you a few brief remarks. First off, why are we here tonight? 7 years ago, it dawned on me that, you know, we have officers that do some really extraordinary things, and we have to recognize them. And the way we used to do it was in roll call, we would present the plaque in front of their colleagues, and we thought, you know, that was pretty good. If you go back 30 years, maybe we're something in the mail slot. So we wanted to do something a little more formal, and we started this program. It's important to take time to recognize the effort and work that our officers do above and beyond. Keep in mind tonight, as you listen to the stories of what these officers did, and these are going to be stories where these people put themselves in harm's way. Courage, commitment, they're just representative of what we believe is the caliber of police officers that we have here in Enfield. Every police officer knows every call you go on, you don't know what's going to happen. It's fraught with danger. And yet the officers come to work every day. They do the best job they can. They accept that reality and really perform the task professionally and with courage. So in preparation for tonight's ceremony, I Googled, I'm not a real techie person, but I Googled today the word courage. And I wanted to look up some historical quotes and definitions. And the good news is I found hundreds and hundreds. More good news is I'm not going to share with you hundreds and hundreds. But I will tell you the bad news. I couldn't find one that really wanted to say what I think courage is. So I made up my own. And simply put, in my opinion, courage is the ability to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, not because of fear, but in spite of it. And what I mean by that is, and you'll hear, these officers did what was necessary when it was necessary, and they were afraid, but that didn't stop them. And when you can do that, that's courage, and I'm proud to be here tonight to be able to share with you and with their families some of these tremendous acts that they've accomplished. When we hire our new officers, you know, we have a very meticulous process before we bring them on board, and then when we hire them, we give them their shiny badges, we give them their gun belts, their bulletproof vests, we issue all kinds of equipment, but you know what we don't issue them, because we can't, they don't have superhuman ability. Our officers can't necessarily run more than other humans or have any superhero qualities, except for this. They know that we can't give them a shield that protects them all the time, but you know what? They accept this job, they're professional, they're dedicated, they devote themselves to what arguably could be the most important job of all, and that's keeping people safe. And I gotta tell you, to be a police officer is a It's an honor, always has been for me. But to be a resident and the chief, to work with people like this is a privilege. So tonight, I hope that you'll agree with me, and when you hear these stories, we'll recognize these people for what they've contributed to our town. So with that, Steve, if you want to come back up, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief, Mayor Copen, Major Fox, for those kind remarks. And before we begin with the presentation of awards, we would like to show you a quick slideshow. I think you'll enjoy some of the events and moments that we've shared throughout the past year, 2012. So if you could focus your attention on the slideshow.
Next team up from the Enfield Police Department, Officer Matt Warden with Canine Falco. Falco's a 3-year-old German Shepherd. They've been together for a year. They graduated from the 146th Canine Training Troop in January 2011. This is one of 3 canine teams in the Enfield Police Department so far. Falco's located 5 fleeing suspects on tracks and made 2 criminal apprehensions while on duty.
now for the presentation of awards. Our first category is called the Police Citizen Award Certificate. And this is when an officer responds to a call or investigates an incident when they find a citizen just went above and beyond in either helping one of us or in some cases helping each other on an assignment. According to our general orders, this category qualifies a citizen to be presented with this award when an individual citizen or organization whose cooperation or assistance has assisted the Enfield Police Department in the apprehension of criminals, the saving of a life, or any other valuable service to the department or the community. And we begin with Mr. Nelvin Levester and Mr. Jerry Bishop. On January 22nd, 2012, at approximately 1:45 p.m., Officer Eddie Nuno was on patrol and was traveling eastbound on Shaker Road in his marked patrol cruiser. A vehicle traveling westbound on Shaker Road abruptly swerved into the eastbound lane and directly into the officer's Nuno's path. And I believe we have some in-car video of that event, if you want to focus on the screen again. Officer Nuno attempted to avoid this head-on collision by swerving his cruiser to the right, but was struck at a high impact speed on the left side of his cruiser, sending his vehicle into a spin. Officer Nuno's cruiser spun 180 degrees and came to rest facing west in the eastbound lane. Officer Nuno attempted to exit his cruiser, but due to damage sustained in the crash, was unable to open his driver's side door. Two passerbys, Jerry Bishop and Nelvin Levester, stopped at the crash scene, and seeing that Officer Nuno was now trapped in his cruiser, both of these Good Samaritans ran to his cruiser and offered their assistance to him. Unable to roll down his window, Officer Nuno tried to force the driver's door open by kicking the door from the inside as Jerry Bishop and Nelvin Levester attempted to pry the door open from the outside. Their efforts proved successful as the cruiser door was quickly opened and Officer Nuno was removed from the vehicle. Jerry Bishop and Nelvin Levester, you acted quickly and without hesitation to offer your assistance to a law enforcement officer in need. You are to be commended for your actions as they reflect highly upon you as Good Samaritans. The Enfield Police Department acknowledges your actions and is proud to present you with the Enfield Police Department Police Citizens Award on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Dakota Waterman. On September 18th, 2012, at approximately 6 p.m., you were at home with your 15-year-old brother and discovered that he had placed himself in a life-threatening situation. With his life in the balance, you summoned aid quickly and with resourcefulness to rescue your sibling. You then performed CPR on your sibling until emergency services arrived. Dakota Waterman, this was a highly stressful situation, and as a direct result of your quick response to this incident, you saved your brother's life. The Enfield Police Department acknowledges your actions and is proud to present you with the Enfield Police Department Police Citizen Award on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Christopher Niesowitz, Bradford West, and Jared West. On July 9th, 2012, at approximately 2:30 p.m., the Enfield Police Department responded to the Ridgefield Road area for a report of a teenage youth hanging from a tree. Upon arrival, officers found the teenager lying on the ground, being tended to by several citizens. This investigation found that the teenager had been playing in the tree with some friends and had somehow fallen, getting a rope used to haul items up into the tree, tangled around his neck. Bradford West, Jared West, and Christopher Nisowitz were driving past this address and noticed the teenager in distress, hanging from the tree, and stopped to help. All three assisted in rescuing the teenager from this life-threatening situation. According to witnesses, all three were instrumental in saving this teenager's life. Bradford West, Jared West, and Christopher Nisowitz, the Enfield Police Department acknowledges your actions and is proud to present you with the Enfield Police Department Police Citizen Award. On this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Congratulations. Good job. Our next category is called the Certificate of Merit. The Certificate of Merit may be awarded to members of the Enfield Police Department to recognize performance resulting in improved operations, outstanding community service, substantial savings in organizational costs, exceptional activities that benefit the department, or whose actions demonstrate a special faithfulness or devotion to duty. Sergeant Charles Grasso. Over the past several years, and in addition to his other responsibilities as the Traffic Division Supervisor, Sergeant Grasso has been responsible for numerous grant applications that have been awarded to the town of Enfield. In addition, Sergeant Grasso has coordinated and has the responsibility of formulating a wide variety of enforcement and operational plans used throughout the year, such as the traffic plan for the 4th of July celebration, various town parades, and coordinated critical multi-agency events that the town has experienced throughout this past year. As of this year, and as a direct result of his tireless efforts, grants that have been awarded to the town of Enfield exceed $1.16 million. These grants include funding for a variety of programs, including Click It or Ticket, campaigns for seatbelt enforcement, DWI checkpoints, DWI roving patrols, regional metro traffic enforcement operations, as well as thousands of dollars in collision investigation equipment, including a recently acquired mobile command vehicle. I believe we have a photo of that. Built at the cost of $225,000, which will be used for the management of critical incidents throughout the greater Hartford capital region. As a result of these grants, the Enfield Police Department has been able to add 2 extra officers on the road every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night for DUI enforcement throughout the year. These increased visibility and enforcement actions has resulted in an overall decrease in numbers involving DWI arrests, motor vehicle accidents, and motor vehicle accidents involving injuries from the previous year. This decrease in incidents involving DWI operators are a direct result of the grant funding and has undoubtedly saved lives. The Enfield Police Department was recently awarded Best Overall DWI Enforcement Program by the Connecticut Department of Transportation, due in large part of the coordinated efforts of Sergeant Charles Grasso. You are a credit to yourself and this department. Sergeant Grasso, through the successful researching, writing of, and applying for state and federal funding, your efforts are responsible for well over $1 million being awarded to the town of Enfield, and you are to be commended for your efforts. You epitomize a can-do, will-do attitude, and it reflects highly upon you as a police officer. We acknowledge your efforts, and you are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Certificate of Merit on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Our next category is called the Outstanding Unit Citation. The Outstanding Unit Citation may be awarded to any unit or division within the department whose members demonstrate continued excellence or a high degree of teamwork and professionalism in the performance of their duties, or who exhibited an exceptional professional skill and conduct during a coordinated action. The Enfield Police Department Communications Division. Please step to the stage. On the evening of October 29, 2011, the state of Connecticut was struck with one of the most severe winter storms ever experienced in the Northeast. As a result of this fall nor'easter, the town of Enfield suffered a complete power outage, leaving an unprecedented number of more than 20 inches of snow on the ground and caused widespread tree damage. This heavy, wet snow overloaded tree branches, causing them to snap and wreaked havoc throughout the town. Many roads throughout town soon became impassable because the trees were falling so fast. Enfield residents and businesses would be without heat, power, phone, or cable for more than a week. The Enfield Emergency Operations Center was activated as the town was under a state of emergency. Emergency shelters were opened throughout the town to give residents a warm place to sleep, a place to grab a bite to eat, or simply to charge their cell phones. During this time, personnel deemed critical to emergency operations, including the Enfield Public Safety and Communications Divisions, were put on mandatory 16-hour shifts lasting the duration of this event. The Enfield Police Communications Division not only staffed the dispatch center during this period, but also the Emergency Operations Center as well. Dispatchers worked nonstop for hours without a break, fielding hundreds of calls per shift, including emergency 911 phone calls, providing emergency medical dispatch assistance, and dealing with frustrated callers asking questions on a variety of issues that dispatchers could not possibly know the answers to. These calls ranged from critical incidents to questions asking where to go, what to do, or even how to do it. Over the course of this 7-day event, the Enfield Police Communications Division triaged thousands of calls based on their priority. Many times during this crisis, they seemed to locate ambulances when none were available, find officers to handle calls when all were tied up on other assignments, and one dispatcher even took the time to locate an open veterinary hospital in West Hartford for a resident whose dog was severely injured by a fallen tree and didn't know what to do. The Enfield Police Communications Division all remained professional and courteous to the public during this highly stressful event. To the members of the Enfield Police Communications Division, you are all to be commended for your patience and your actions during this unprecedented event, as they reflect highly upon you as dispatchers. You are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Unit Citation Award on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. I would like now to ask Major Rick Fox to the stage, as his division will be getting a Unit Citation Award. The Connecticut State Police Canine Search and Rescue Team, please step to the stage. On October 19th, 2012, at approximately 12:15 p.m., the Enfield Police Department took a report of a missing person involving a 28-year-old male who suffered from depression and had left his parents a note indicating possible suicidal tendencies. Enfield police investigators had reason to believe this missing person may be in the wooded area located at the end of Kalish Avenue. The Connecticut State Police Canine Search and Rescue Team was requested to assist in the search for this missing person. Responding canine troopers were advised of the circumstances surrounding the missing person and that he had been missing since around noon that day. The Connecticut State Police Canine Search and Rescue Team conducted a search of this heavily wooded area in pouring rain for approximately 5 hours that evening. The search was called off around 11 p.m. due to weather conditions. The next morning, on October 20th, at approximately 8 a.m., the Connecticut State Police Canine Search and Rescue Team returned to the Kalish Avenue area to continue the search for the missing person. This canine search team included 7 canine troopers and a team commander. Throughout the day, the search rescue teams searched several acres of wooded property, and throughout the use of GPS tracking technology on their canines, assured a complete and thorough search of the target area. At approximately 3:45 p.m., a member of the Canine Search and Rescue Team located this missing person in a deep ravine along the Massachusetts border. The missing person was found alive, suffering from exposure to the elements for nearly 30 hours with a self-inflicted laceration to his left wrist. Rescue personnel involving police, fire, and EMS assisted in the removing of the victim from this wooded location, where he was placed into protective custody and life-starred to Hartford Hospital for a medical evaluation. To the members of the Connecticut State Police Canine Search and Rescue Team, due to your extraordinary efforts put forth in this case, a suicidal person was quickly located and his life was surely saved. You are all to be commended for your actions, as they reflect highly upon you as state troopers. You are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Unit Citation Award on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. the Enfield Police Detective Bureau. On the morning of March 14th, 2010, the Enfield Police Department was called to the Eli Lilly warehouse on Freshwater Boulevard for a report of a burglary to that building. The Eli Lilly warehouse facility is one of 3 distribution centers in the nation for the international pharmaceutical firm. Upon arrival, officers confirmed that a burglary had occurred. Based on the method in which this burglary occurred, the value of the pharmaceutical product that was involved, the Enfield Police Detective Bureau was assigned this investigation, with Detective Brian Callahan as the lead investigator in this case. The investigation revealed that sometime in the overnight hours of Sunday, March 14th, 2010, thieves had scaled the walls of the Eli Lilly facility, cut a hole in the roof, and using ropes slid down into the pharmaceutical warehouse. These burglars then disabled the alarm system and, using a forklift, loaded several pallets of prescription drugs into a tractor-trailer parked in the rear of the building. The Enfield Police Detective Bureau processed the entire scene, collecting over 35 pieces of evidence connected to this investigation, including video surveillance, burglary tools, and items such as water bottles thought to contain possible DNA evidence. The extensive inventory of product was conducted at the Eli Lilly facility, concluding that over $76 million in prescription drugs had been stolen. This burglary was classified as the largest pharmaceutical theft in U.S. history. This investigation spanned over the next 26 months. It involved the writing of several dozen search warrants for information including cell tower records, cell phone records, airline passenger logs, toll receipts, and rental car transactions. Members of the Enfield Police Detective Bureau spent countless hours reviewing thousands of documents pertaining to this ongoing investigation. Evidence collected on scene was forensically analyzed, resulting in DNA material being identified and matched against state and local databanks. Based on the information and through analysis of evidence collected on scene, information developed through multiple search warrants and interviews that a suspect was ultimately identified. Detective Callahan worked closely with both the FBI and the DEA in reviewing any and all leads developed into this investigation, and traveled to South Florida to assist the FBI in the arrest of multiple suspects responsible for the Eli Lilly burglary. Throughout this entire investigation, and over the span of 2 years, Detective Callahan worked tirelessly and remained committed to this investigation being concluded. Detectives Lewis and Detective Bailey were vital to this investigation for the manner in which they collected and processed critical evidence. Detective Dave Thomas also spent countless hours typing and processing multiple search warrants that developed additional information and evidence deemed critical to this investigation. In May of 2012, 2 suspects and 9 other individuals were charged in federal court in Miami with the theft of an interstate shipment and conspiracy. According to the U.S. Attorney David Fine, the charges against these 3 suspects are a direct result of the sustained and thorough investigation by the Enfield Police Department and the FBI, and that a prolific cargo theft ring had been dismantled. This multi-agency and multi-jurisdictional effort is an excellent example of the investigative efforts of law enforcement. The commitment and tenacity displayed throughout this investigation demonstrated a solid foundation of teamwork between the Enfield Police Department and the FBI. Detective Callahan, Detective Lewis, Detective Bailey, Detective Thomas, as well as the entire Enfield Police Detective Bureau, you are all to be congratulated on a job well done. The largest cargo theft in U.S. history was solved due to your commitment to excellence and to this investigation. Your actions reflect highly upon you as investigators, as you have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty that are in the highest traditions of the Enfield Police Department. Detective Callahan will be presented with the Medal for Distinguished Service. Detective Lewis and Detective Bailey, as well as Detective Dave Thomas, will be presented with the Enfield Police Department Medal for Meritorious Service. And the Enfield Police Detective Bureau is presented with the Enfield Police Department Unit Citation Award on the 30th day of November, 2012. Our next category is the Letter of Commendation. A person is qualified to receive the letter of commendation when actions of a member of the Enfield Police Department are significant enough in nature to deserve recognition, but yet do not meet the qualifications for a medal. A letter of commendation may be awarded. Enfield Police Communication Dispatchers Jonathan Sleva, James Wabel, and Jennifer Brazel. On July 3rd, 2012, at 11:03 p.m., the Enfield Police Communications Center received multiple 911 phone calls reporting an altercation on Isnuntuck Street involving both guns and knives and that shots had been fired. Multiple calls continued to overwhelm the communications center, reporting that suspects are now fleeing the scene and that several people were now injured on Isnuntuck Street. Dispatchers Sleva, Wabel, and Brazel remained calm and focused during this highly stressful event. This critical incident was given priority traffic on Police Channel 1, and all non-event traffic diverted to Police Channel 2. Causing these dispatchers to monitor communications over multiple frequencies to over 17 police officers, detectives, and police commanders, as well as multiple ambulances from both in and out of town. This was done while simultaneously handling both emergency and non-emergency type phone calls, as well as the Enfield Police fire frequencies. The dispatch team worked seamlessly together over the course of 3 hours, triaging a variety of calls for assistance, relaying critical information to officers on scene, and frequently explained to residents what was occurring and why immediate police services were unavailable. Dispatchers Sleva, Wabel, and Brazel, this was a highly stressful situation, and due to your teamwork that evening in handling communications, your efforts played a vital role in no officers being injured, several suspects being located and identified, and multiple victims quickly being provided with emergency medical care. You are to be commended for your actions and, by all accounts, for a job well done. You are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Letter of Commendation on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. I'd like to call one of our dispatchers, Kenneth Maltese, to the stage for the presentation of a letter of commendation to his son, Dispatcher Robert Maltese. Dispatcher Robert Maltese. On August 22nd, 2012, at approximately 3 p.m., you were assigned to the police dispatch position in the Enfield Police Communications Division. A report of a larceny complaint from the Kohl's department store was received, and appropriate resources were dispatched to the area. You advised responding units of the description of the involved vehicle now fleeing the scene and the direction of travel. Responding officers located this vehicle based on the information you provided them en route to this assignment. As Enfield officers attempted to stop this vehicle, the suspect failed to stop and attempted to elude capture by leading Enfield officers on a 16-minute pursuit, traveling south on Route 91 and into the town of Windsor, Connecticut. Throughout this entire pursuit, you maintained a constant communication with pursuing vehicles, as well as a calm and professional demeanor on the radio. As Enfield officers pursued this vehicle into Windsor, you followed this pursuit using GPS mapping technology with the communications center. Using exceptional judgment, knowing officers that were pursuing this vehicle would be unfamiliar to the area in the Windsor-Bloomfield towns they were now in, you guided several cruisers street by street in the direction of the pursuit. Enfield officers ultimately stopped and caught the suspect on a secondary road in Windsor, and you continued to guide backup officers to this location to assist them in the apprehension of this suspect. Dispatcher Maltese, this was a highly stressful situation, and through the intelligent performance of your duty, you provided critical information to pursuing officers, enabling them to quickly navigate through unfamiliar town roads as they pursued the suspect. You are to be commended for your actions as they significantly contributed to the successful outcome of this event. You are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Letter of Commendation on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Dispatcher Patrick Carifa. On October 24th, 2012, at approximately 11:30 p.m., Dispatcher Karifa was working the overnight shift in the Enfield Communications Center and was assigned to the fire dispatcher position. A report of a structure fire was received and appropriate resources were assigned and dispatched to the area of Hasmar Road. During the course of the structure fire, a secondary porch attached to the back of the house had collapsed, with firefighters who were battling the fire still on it. One of the firefighters called a mayday signal, but due to scene activity, no one at the fire scene heard the mayday distress call. Dispatcher Karifa, alert at his position and carefully monitoring radio traffic, activated an emergency tone-out, advised the incident commander of the emergency issue, and alerted on-scene rescue personnel of the firefighters who were now in distress. This rapid dissemination of emergency notifications that occurred by Dispatcher Karifa allowed for the injured firefighters to quickly be recovered and significantly minimize their exposure to an area that was deemed extremely hazardous. Dispatcher Karifa, your attentive, competent, and high level of professional dispatching that evening enabled a quick, accurate, and effective response to a serious and possible life-threatening occurrence. You are to be commended for your actions as they reflect highly upon you as an emergency communications dispatcher. You are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Letter of Commendation. On this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Officer Barry Gavello and Officer Peter Nasirios. On November 17, 2011, at approximately 1:58 p.m., Officer Barry Gavello and Officer Peter Nasirios were dispatched to a building located at 227 Brainerd Road, the former Creck School, for a report of an activated burglar alarm. While en route to this call, Enfield Police dispatchers advised these officers that multiple alarms throughout the building had been activated. Officer Nasirios arrived on scene and began a perimeter check of the building. As Officer Nasirios was checking the perimeter doors and windows, he observed movement inside the building corridor. Officer Nasirios advised responding units that 3 perpetrators were observed inside the building and were now running north towards the rear of the building. Officer Nasirios observed the 3 suspects exit the rear of the school and begin running north towards the Till Street area. While chasing after these suspects on foot, Officer Nasirios advised responding units of their individual descriptions and their direction of travel. As Officer Gavello arrived on scene, he observed Officer Nasirios in foot pursuit exiting the rear of the property along a tree line and into a wooded area heading towards the Till Street area. Officer Gavello responded to the Till Street area in his cruiser, and as he was checking the area, and as he turned onto Robin Road, observed a green Honda Accord leaving the area at a high rate of speed. Officer Gavello observed that there were 3 occupants inside the vehicle and advised responding units that this vehicle was a possible suspect vehicle attempting to leave the area. Officer Gavello activated his lights and siren and pulled the vehicle over on Roosevelt Boulevard. Backup units arrived on scene, and Officer Gavello approached the vehicle, observing that all 3 occupants matched the description given by Officer Nasirios, and all 3 were breathing heavily. Officers on scene observed what appeared to be a handgun sticking out of a pile of clothing in the back seat. This weapon was seized as evidence and later identified as an airsoft-type pistol. Airsoft guns are air-pressure ballistic projectiles that replicate a real firearm that fire plastic pellets. All 3 suspects were interviewed and ultimately arrested on a variety of criminal charges. Officer Barry Gavello and Officer Peter Nasirios, through the intelligent performance of your duty, 3 felony burglary suspects were apprehended. This was a highly stressful incident, and your actions reflect highly upon you as police officers. You are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Letter of Commendation. On this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Our next category is called the Department Medal for Meritorious Service. The Department Citation for Meritorious Service may be awarded to any member who successfully performs at an extremely complex and difficult investigation, or who demonstrates exceptional skill and ingenuity in the apprehension of wanted persons, or who provides outstanding service to the public, or who continuously achieves excellence in the performance of their duties over an extended period of time. The Meritorious Service Medal shall be consistent and shall consist of a white, light blue, and white ribbon worn on the department uniform. Officer Ashley Taylor. On April 12, 2012, at 12:46 a.m., Officer Taylor responded to a suspicious person complaint in the Varno Lane area involving a person riding a bike and walking behind houses with a flashlight. Upon arrival, Officer Taylor spoke with the complainant and, along with backup officers, began checking the area. Officer Taylor checked the rear of the house where the suspect was last seen and observed the rear garage door open. Officer Taylor continued her investigation and observed the suspect fleeing the area towards Nancy Drive and engaged him in a foot pursuit. Officer Taylor quickly captured the suspect and questioned him regarding his activities on Varno Lane. This investigation revealed that the suspect had entered a house through a rear garage door and had attempted to steal a bicycle located within the garage. Officer Taylor found a quad key on the suspect and questioned him. It was advised that the suspect had recently traded a bicycle for a quad reported to be at the suspect's house. The suspect was ultimately arrested for the burglary on Varno Lane. Officer Taylor spoke with the suspect's mother regarding this investigation and obtained permission to check the property for the quad in question. The property was checked, but the quad could not be located that evening. Officer Taylor, thinking that the quad was likely stolen, aggressively pursued this investigation. Officer Taylor advised fellow officers of her investigation, and within a few days, a stolen quad was recovered by the Enfield Police Department without a key. Officer Taylor retrieved the quad key from evidence that she had seized earlier and matched it to the stolen quad. The quad had been stolen out of Stafford, and Officer Taylor made contact with the owner regarding this investigation. Officer Taylor also made contact with the Connecticut State Police to advise them of her investigation and the possible link to their burglary investigation in Stafford. Over the course of the next several weeks, Officer Taylor conducted neighborhood canvasses, multiple interviews, took numerous statements, pursued lengthy follow-up investigations, and worked with several outside police agencies surrounding this investigation. Officer Taylor's initiative that began with her suspicions over a single key recovered on a burglary suspect resulted in the arrest of several burglary suspects and multiple burglary investigations being solved, as well as stolen property being returned to its rightful owner. Officer Taylor, you are to be commended for your actions regarding this investigation, as they reflect highly upon you as a police officer. You have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty in the highest traditions of the Enfield Police Department and are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Medal for Meritorious Service on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Our next category is called the Departmental Citation Medal. A departmental citation shall be awarded to a department member who saves someone's life or who makes a valiant attempt to save someone's life. A departmental citation shall also be awarded to any department member who, through the diligence and initiative, apprehends or causes to be apprehended a serious felon. This medal shall be worn on the department uniform and consists of a white, red, and white ribbon. Officer Jason Rudovich. On November 23, 2012, at approximately 4 p.m., Officer Rudovich was dispatched to an address on Oakwood Street for a medical call involving a 76-year-old female patient with shortness of breath. Upon arrival, Officer Rudovich made contact with the patient, and upon beginning his initial assessment, the patient went into cardiac arrest. Officer Rudovich began CPR with the assistance of a duty officer from the Shaker Fines Fire Department. Officer Rudovich continued CPR until efforts from EMS Officer Rudovich continued CPR efforts until Enfield EMS arrived and took over patient care. The patient was successfully revived and transported to the hospital for a medical evaluation. Officer Rudovich, this was a highly stressful situation, and due to your resuscitative efforts, this patient survived. You have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty in the highest traditions of the Enfield Police Department and are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Citation Medal on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Officer Matthew Warden. On the evening of March 15, 2012, at approximately 10 p.m., Officer Warden was at police headquarters and responded to the front parking lot area for a report of a 20-year-old male inside a vehicle not breathing. Officer Warden found this male inside the vehicle, unconscious, not breathing, and turning blue. Officer Warden quickly removed the patient from the vehicle and onto the ground in order to perform a rapid medical assessment. Officer Warden established an airway and, using a bagged valve mask, performed rescue breathing techniques on the patient. The patient soon began breathing on his own and regained full consciousness prior to being transported to the hospital for a medical evaluation. Officer Warden, this was a highly stressful situation, and due to your resuscitative efforts, a young male who had suffered an apparent drug overdose survived this incident. You are to be commended for your actions, as they reflect highly upon you as a police officer. You have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty in the highest traditions of the Enfield Police Department and are hereby awarded the Enfield Police Department Citation Medal on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Officer Mark Rochette. On September 22, 2012, at 1:39 p.m., Officer Rochette was on patrol and was dispatched to a motor vehicle accident on Route 91 involving an unconscious patient. As Officer Rochette arrived on scene, he observed the vehicle involved had struck and come to rest along the Jersey barrier on Route 91. Several passerbys had stopped to assist and had removed the unconscious driver through the passenger side door from the vehicle and onto the highway. Officer Rochette performed a rapid assessment of this unconscious patient and, with no vital signs present, began CPR efforts. Enfield Fire and EMS personnel arrived on scene, and working together, this patient was successfully defibrillated using an AED. The patient was transported by EMS to the hospital for an evaluation and was reported to be in stable condition later that day. Officer Rochette, this was a highly stressful situation, and due to your resuscitative efforts, a driver who had experienced cardiac arrest while traveling on Route 91 survived this incident. You have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty in the highest traditions of the Enfield Police Department, and you are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Citation Medal on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Officer Joseph Blazik. On April 25, 2012, at approximately 1:35 p.m., Officer Blazik was dispatched to the Raffia Road service station for a medical call involving an elderly male who had collapsed in the lobby. Officer Blazik arrived on scene and, within 1 minute of being dispatched, found the patient now to be in cardiac arrest. Officer Blazik quickly assessed the patient and began CPR efforts. Officer Blazik continued CPR alone until EMS and fire personnel arrived on scene to assist him. The patient was given 2 shock sequences using an automated external defibrillator, an AED, and vital signs were quickly reestablished. Prior to arriving at the hospital, the patient had a strong pulse, a good blood pressure, and was breathing adequately on his own. Officer Blazik, this was a highly stressful situation, and through the intelligent performance of your duty, you saved a life. You have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty in the highest tradition of the Enfield Police Department, and are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Citation Medal on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Detective James Held. On March 27, 2012, Detective Held received information from the Cheshire Police Department that a suspect, whom at the time resided in Enfield, had sold an unusual number of GPS devices at the pawn shops located in Wethersfield, Connecticut. Prior to this intelligence, Detective Held had been aware that the suspect had also made a number of suspicious transactions at a pawn shop located in East Windsor, Connecticut. Detective Held followed up on this investigation, and based on data retrieved from GPS devices obtained owner information on several of the units that were sold to local pawn shops. Subsequent investigation revealed that several of the GPS units were in fact stolen during car burglaries, but had gone unnoticed or unreported to the police. Detective Held interviewed the suspect and obtained a full confession, admitting to an unknown number of burglaries in Enfield as well as in neighboring towns. The suspect also admitted to committing an unknown number of larcenies from the area Home Depot stores. Detective Held's investigation concluded showing that the suspect had committed a total of 17 burglaries, 9 in Enfield, 3 in East Windsor, 2 in Manchester, and 3 in the town of Ellington. Detective Held was able to recover most of the items stolen and return those items to their rightful owner. The total monetary value of items taken during these car burglaries was in excess of $3,000. Detective Held was also able to show that the suspect had committed a total of 31 larcenies from the area Home Depot stores, with a total monetary loss to Home Depot of more than $9,400. 3 of the 31 larcenies were committed at the Enfield Home Depot. On May 15, 2012, the suspect was arrested by Detective Held and charged with several felony crimes that occurred within the town of Enfield. Detective Held, due to your investigative efforts, a total of 48 burglaries and larcenies were solved, and countless more prevented due to the incarceration of this suspect. You are to be commended on your investigative abilities, as they reflect highly upon you as a police officer. You have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty that are in keeping with the highest traditions of the Enfield Police Department, and are presented with the Enfield Police Department Citation Medal on this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Congratulations. Our next category is called the Medal for Distinguished Service. The Distinguished Service Medal shall be awarded to any department member who renders service beyond the normal course of duty with alertness, perseverance, or timely judgment in the performance of a difficult task which results in the protection of life, the recovery of stolen property, the prevention or solving of a major crime, or the apprehension of an armed or otherwise dangerous person, without regard to personal safety. This medal shall be worn on the Enfield Police Department uniform as a red, white, and red ribbon. Officer Mark Rochette. On February 16, 2012, at 9:54 a.m., Officer Mark Rochette was on patrol and was assigned to cover a district in the northwestern part of town. Enfield police dispatchers received a call from the Connecticut State Police Troop C barracks advising them that an attempted burglary had just occurred near the Summers-Enfield line. Troop C advised us that suspects were witnessed fleeing the home in the Summers area and were last seen headed in a northwesterly direction through tobacco fields towards Enfield. Enfield police dispatchers, having only a vague description of the suspects given by the witness, sent several officers to the area of the Enfield-Summers line to search for the burglary suspects. Officer Mark Rochette, from across town, quickly responded to the area to assist in the search. Officer Rochette intuitively headed to the Jackson Road area, knowing that the tobacco fields in question the suspects were now seen, or last seen running through, bordered the Jackson Road properties. Officer Rochette located 2 white males on Jackson Road matching the description of the burglary suspects and observed both of them had mud on their pants and on their shoes. Officer Rochette detained both suspects on scene until Connecticut State Police personnel arrived and conducted their investigation. Officer Rochette continued to assist in this investigation while Connecticut State Police investigators conducted canine tracking and eyewitness identification procedures. Both suspects were subsequently arrested for the attempted burglary into an occupied home in the Summers, Connecticut town. Officer Rochette, through the intelligent performance of your duty, 2 felony burglary suspects were quickly located and taken into custody, and further danger to the public was avoided. You are hereby commended for your actions, as they reflect highly upon you as a police officer. You have demonstrated a devotion and faithfulness to duty in the highest traditions of the Enfield Police Department, and are hereby presented with the Enfield Police Department Medal for Distinguished Service. On this, the 30th day of November, 2012. Ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude our award ceremony for the 2012 year. I would like to ask you all, please, to give another round of applause to our recipients tonight. And again, my congratulations to the officers who have received their awards tonight. And for our closing remarks, Chief Carl Surprazza.
First of all, I want to make sure that I don't forget to thank the people I need to thank. And first off, for putting this presentation together tonight, Lieutenant Steve Keselowskis and Officer Tommy Pers put many, many hours in to make it flow as good as they did. So I certainly appreciate the work that Tom and Steve have done. I also want to thank Officer Jessica Ficara for putting the slideshow together, Officer Martell, and Officer Krennewick for all they've done. I also would be remiss, before I let everybody go, if I didn't express all to you how appreciative I am of the people that I work with every day. And I work with the officers, but more closely, my command staff. And I just want them to know how much I appreciate the work and help I get from Gary, from Fred, from Jeff, and certainly whenever I have a problem or he's there all the time for me, is my Director of Public Safety, Mr. Chris Brompton. So I want to make sure they understand I'm up here, but you guys are with me in this. And as far as these guys go, I said earlier tonight, I looked up the definition of courage, and I found hundreds of definitions. If I had a laptop now, and I could Twitter, but I can't Twitter, but if I could, and looked up the word pride, it would say Enfield Police Department tonight. And I hope the citizens of Enfield see this on ETV and appreciate the efforts. Like I said before, we're not supermen and superwomen. They're just super people, and I guess that's good enough for me. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next year.